Hey guys, it's Jen, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to use the Pentax K1000 SLR film camera. Now, in my opinion, and according to reviews, this is one of the best cameras to start with if you are learning photography or if you just shifted to film photography. It's very simple to use. It gives you everything you need and nothing that you don't. And aside from that, everything is manual, so it's very fun for learning. So let's get started. The first thing that we're gonna look at is the battery, which can be found at the bottom of the camera, right over here. And the best way to take it out is to use a small coin. Particularly, I'm using a 50 fil coin, and just put it here and turn it counterclockwise. Now, the sole purpose of this battery is only for light meter reading. And the good thing about this camera is that it's fully mechanical. The shutter speed, the aperture, everything is mechanical, so you can actually take photos without a battery, but you won't only be able to use the light meter. This camera uses an Energizer A76 battery, and you can still find this in hardware stores. But if you don't have one, you can always download light meter apps in the App Store or in the Play Store. Now, for those of you who don't know yet how to load film on this camera, I actually have a whole other set of video on how to do that, which I will link in the description below. But before you do that, you might want to make sure and take note on your film what ISO it is. The ISO is the light sensitivity of your film, and it's going to be measured by a number like this. So here we have a 400 ISO, but for the purposes of this video, I'm not actually gonna load any film, so I can show you a couple other stuff. But you have to definitely take note of that because we will set our ISO to that number. Now, once you've loaded your film, you want to go ahead and set your ISO. On this camera, the way to do it is around this knob right here. Now, if you'll notice, you're gonna see a small window right here that says ISO. Now, this is where you're gonna set your ISO based on the film that you just loaded. In order to do that, we have to pull up the outer ring on this knob and just twist until we get the correct number. So I've set it at 400, and it's very important that you set this correctly because it's gonna determine your light meter reading on the viewfinder. So now I'm going to show you the basics of how to use an SLR camera. And the first setting that I'm going to show you is the shutter speed. The shutter speed is controlled by this dial up here. Turning the whole thing changes the shutter speed, and it will be indicated by this orange arrow at the side, while lifting the outer ring and turning it changes the ISO, which is inside this very small window. Now, all these numbers represent fractions of a second. So that's 1/1000, 1/500th, and if you scroll down to the smaller numbers, say for example 2, that means 1/2 of a second, and 1, which means 1 second. Now, if we scroll to the very bottom, we'll see letter B says here, and it stands for the word bulb. Now, this means that when you press the shutter button down, the shutter is gonna stay open until you release it. So I'm just gonna show you how that looks. So I'm just gonna hold the shutter. Now the shutter is open and it captures a lot of images as long as it's open. Then when I let it go, it's gonna release. So this is a good setting if you wanna capture long exposures. Now, in terms of the aperture, it's gonna be this ring right here. The smaller number means a larger aperture, and the bigger number means smaller aperture. So it's the opposite. So if you have this very small aperture, it means that more light is coming into the camera. And if you have a higher aperture number, it means that less light is going to come into the camera. Besides the aperture, you're going to see some numbers here that's going from 4, 8, 16, and 22. So this refers to what aperture you're on. So let's say I'm in 8, and I have an 8 here and an 8 there. And this is what you turn to focus your picture. So let's just move it around. Now you'll see some numbers here in feet and in meters. So if I'm at 8, I'm using an aperture of 8, and I have the 8 here and an 8 there. So my focus will be between 2.5 feet and 2 feet. So anything beyond that range will be definitely out of focus, and anything within that range will be in focus. Now the viewfinder for the K1000 is very simple. On the right hand side, you'll see a needle that moves up and down and the plus and minus signs. If I'm gonna increase the shutter speed, you'll see the needle will go down as it's not gonna get a lot of light. Now if I'm gonna lower the shutter speed into maybe 8, you'll see the needle going up. Now your job is to make sure that the needle stays in the middle, and it means that your picture is properly exposed. Now you have to take note that the light meter activates when there's actual light coming in through the camera, and the only way to turn it off is to put the lens cap on. Now as I mentioned earlier, the light meter is the only one that uses the battery power. So if you forgot to put the lens cap on and then you're shooting outside, it could actually drain your battery. Now the way to take a picture is to press the shutter button up here. Right now it's not doing anything because the camera is not cocked, but in order to do that, I have to advance this advance lever right here that will advance the film onto the next frame. And while you're doing that, this knob here should turn. That will indicate that your film is actually advancing. Now if you actually had film in here and this knob doesn't turn, then it means that there's something wrong and your film was not loaded correctly. But right now the camera is cocked, and when I press the shutter button, it's gonna take a picture. Now one thing that I'd like to point out regarding this advance lever is that sometimes I get into the habit of taking a picture and then immediately winding the lever again. So the only problem with this is the shutter button doesn't have a lock mechanism unlike other cameras, so you can easily make the mistake of pressing the shutter button or taking a picture without even knowing that it was wound. But in order to know that if it's wound or not, there is a little indicator just beside the shutter button. It's gonna light up red if your camera is actually wound, and if it's not, it's gonna turn off. So let me just show you that again. So it's red now to indicate that the camera is wound, and when you press the shutter button, it's gonna take a picture. Now you can also see that as I wind the film, there is a little indicator here on this knob to let me know what picture I'm on. So if I'm using a film with 36 exposures, so it lets me know how many pictures I've taken. So in this case, I'd be around 24 on my 24th exposure. Now just keep going, and then your indicator will just keep moving until you finish the whole roll. Now say for example I'm using a film of 24 exposures, so I've reached 25, and when I try to wind the advance lever, it's gonna lock halfway somewhere here to indicate that the film is actually finished. So once that happens, it's time to go and change the film. Now in order to change the lens on the Pentax camera, there is a release button down here, so you have to hold it down and then rotate your lens counterclockwise. Now for all Pentax cameras, they use a red dot on the camera and on the lens to indicate where to put your lens. This is true for all Pentax cameras, whether it's the manual one or the digital one. And the good thing about Pentax lenses is that I can actually use this lens on digital cameras. Manual lenses can be used on digital cameras. So to put it back, you just have to make sure that the red dot on the lens and the red dot on the camera matches, and then rotate your lens counterclockwise. Then it's gonna click, then you know that it's locked onto the camera. Now the Pentax camera has also the ability to use a flash. So you have the hot shoe up here, and this is just a single contact hot shoe, so the flash will just click just once, and everything is manual, just like the lens, which is also manual. Now you'll notice there's an X right here on the hot shoe, and on your shutter speed, 1/60th of a second has an X and has a red X. So this will be your shutter speed whenever you use flash, because it's gonna sync with the speed of the flash. Another accessory feature on the Pentax camera is what we call the PC sync port, which is located down here. So when you take this out, there's actually a port here where you can connect the camera to an off-camera flash. So you can use this when you're using studio flashes. Now once you're actually done taking pictures on the camera, the release button for rewinding the film is located here at the bottom, and what you have to do is to press that and hold it down, and then you have to pull this knob up here, your rewind knob, and then rotate it on the direction of the arrow, and it says counterclockwise, so you just have to just keep cranking that until you hear the click. And once that's actually done, you can now pull this lever up, and that's gonna open the back of the camera. Then you're ready to take out your film and load a new one. So that's it guys, the basics of how to use the Pentax K1000 SLR camera. Now if you've liked this video or you've actually learned something from it, don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching.